before getting into the questions of the week, I want to talk about something, a change in the training. And the change is, it was fun being outside. It gave me a great tan. But other than that, I'm going back to the garage. And here's why. The garage is just a different beast, right? When you can crank tunes, the garage door is closed. Therefore, while the neighbors may hear it all, out of sight, out of mind, so I don't care, right? Is when I'm working out outside, I'm doing stuff and I'm trying to go beast mode, and people are walking by, people are looking. It's, it's like a scene. It's a spectacle, right? Whereas in the garage, the tunes are on full blast and you're just in the zone. And after all, at the end of the day, it's a mindset. And your mindset is wrecked when you're in the public, like outside. It's one thing when you're in the gym because, you know what I mean? Like you can demonstrate power and strength and explosiveness to individuals. But when people are driving by just looking at you and they have no clue what's going on, and the tunes can't be cranked because you can't, you get arrested by the police for, noise complaint or whatever. It's just not gonna fly. So what I'm doing now, this is exactly what I'm doing, boys. I moved back into the garage, some stuff, and because I'm back in there, good Lord, oh God, oh my God, yuck. Back to deadlifts, because that's the thing, I couldn't deadlift outside. And you know what, I even tried, and it's terrible. Like, you're not supposed to deadlift in sneakers because you lose force from the squish in the sneakers, you know what I mean? Well, imagine when you're out in sneakers on sand and the sand's just dispersing, you're sinking into the ground and you're trying to deadlift. Not to mention that the ground doesn't sink evenly, right? Like, so your weight's totally distributed all funky. And I didn't think much of it because I never really tried maxing on deadlifts. And I did things like farmer's walks and they felt funky, and I did like cleans and presses out there and they felt funky, of course. But it was 2 days ago I tried doing deadlifts for the first time because my wife's like, you gotta get back to deadlifting because I'm losing weight. Probably because I'm not deadlifting. Deadlifting is the greatest exercise there is. And I'm not talking about conventionals. I'm talking about all sorts of deadlift variations. So if you're not deadlifting, you're missing out on gains basically. So, I was like, yeah, I got to get back to the bread and butter, right? I got to get back to these big movements. So I tried deadlifting out there, and like my knee was killing me. And that's because you sink into the ground, and again, your weight's distributed unevenly and funky. And it's not even like you're flat-footed. Like, you might have like the inside of your feet sinking to the ground, or the outside of your feet, maybe the outside of this foot, the inside of this foot. It's horrible, horrible. So I said, screw it, and I lifted back in the garage today. And I went back to RDLs, and they feel great. But I'm weak. I'm really weak because I haven't been focusing on it. It's like I say to you guys all the time. You can get the strongest you've ever been by specializing in something. But the second you move on to something else and you don't do it for a while, you like, I did a 605 for 2 on Romanian deadlifts, and that felt hard as hell. And I've done 700 pounds on a Romanian deadlift before. So it's kind of depressing, but at the same time it's good because there's a lot of gains to be made, because at the end of the day, lifting outside, great gains in terms of tan and feeling good and rejuvenating my mindset to get back into the garage, but epic flop in terms of actually making gains out there. So what I'm doing now is the big heavy lifts in the garage, and then afterwards I'll just do some like dips or some pull-ups or some like hanging leg raises outside in the sun, just to get that UV radiation, making gains. And then and with that being said, the bike sprints, guys, like, I'm trying to get in decent shape for health, but for my job as well. And holy buckets, those are hard. Some of you guys said, hey, Ricky, what's the best cardiovascular exercise or whatever it was? And I threw out some suggestions, but nothing gets you. Like, if you do a real all-out 100% sprint on the Air9 bike, like, it feels like you've been electrocuted. Like, your whole body is like you could just lay in bed and go to sleep because you're just exhausted. Today, I literally just did a 1 minute all-out sprint, and then just a 40-second all-out sprint. And I was trying to go for another minute, but I just hit a wall at 40 seconds. And just those 2 sprints, like, I was like, I'm done. I'm cooked. It's not all I did. I did the deads and I did the leg raises and stuff, but I was cooked. So I'm going to get back into doing that and get better with that. So that's just the update there. Let's get to these questions now. Question here from Chris saying, what's Chris saying here? Frick! Saying, Thick Rick, looking for a couple of golden tidbits. First, what do you think is the best way to go about building up some thick, chunky, strong abs? Not looking for any Athlete X toned abs in 10 minutes. Also, what do you think built your legs? Okay, so let's talk about the abs. So, listen, there is the school of thought that like, oh, heavy compound lifts are going to like give you enough core development and strength. And while that may be true, you're definitely leaving gains on the table, right? So I've gone through extreme phases where I've done just deadlifts and squat variations and things of that sort, and always had decent ab development. I'm talking about where you're even a little fluffy and chunky, but you still have abs popping out. And so you'll have a little development there. Pull-ups will give you a little bit of development, right? Dips, maybe a little bit. But that's so you're leaving gains on the table here. And honestly, the best exercise you can do is hanging leg raises, where straight legs touching your toe to the bar. That's the best thing you can do. And so it's funny because every freaking video, guys, I'm so sorry, like fighter jets flying by, like freaking missiles launching through the sky. So god dang annoying. My daughter's been going to gymnastics, like a good gymnastics school, for the past few months. And you want to believe the freaking muscular development on these little kids. I'm talking like 7-year-olds, maybe 10-year-olds. I don't even know. But I don't even know what age these girls could be, like 10 years old maybe. And these girls are more jacked than like jabronis at your local commercial gym. Like, it's insane. So I'm watching this and I'm like studying it. You know, it's like, this is interesting because I've said it before, like professional athletes are only going to do what works for the most part. I'm talking about like strength and conditioning for like pro teams and stuff. Like if they're doing it, it's because it works. And they don't have time to do inefficient training or ineffective training, wasting their time with that kind of stuff. So it's like, same thing, like gymnastics is a sport where you have to be strong. You know what I mean? You have to be strong and athletic. There's no time to waste dilly-dallying, like, oh, try out these cable crossovers. Maybe this will help. It's like, no, you have to be strong to be able to do this stuff. So it's like the things they do it because it guaranteed works, and people have been doing it probably for like, I was gonna say decades, but no, centuries, right? I'm sure gymnastics is a very old sport. And so like, you know, I'm just watching the things they do, and they just do tons of pull-ups. They do tons of hanging leg raises, different types of like pull-up variations. They climb a rope, climbing rope stuff. Tons of like V-up. That's another like, so hanging leg raise, right? You're hanging, straight leg, touch the toes to the bars. Both legs, obviously, touch the toes to the bars. But then they also do like warming up and stuff. They do like toe, like V-ups. You know, it's a basic exercise too. Just a lot of that type of abdominal training where it's not just like, you know, how there's like sit-ups that mainly target like your like upper abs, like, but your lower abdominals are really the most important thing for like your back health and for like your spinal stability, along with like your obliques and stuff. Like your lower abs are important. So all these people doing all these different sit-up variations, and their heavy resisted sit-up machines or their cable crunches, like, they're really missing the boat by not doing abdominal work that you're hitting your abs through your lifting your legs. Like, that's the type of stuff. So like doing a V-up, right? It's a leg raise and sit up, and you're touching your toe, and then doing a hanging leg raise, right? Like just hanging alone is going to be like isometrically working your abdominals, and then doing that motion is just really smashing those lower abdominals. And if you do them with straight legs and you do them like strict and controlled, there's nothing like it. It's really hard. So I started doing it too because, you know, I only want to do, I say it all the time, like if something's important to you, do it like every day, right? If something's effective, do it. Do the effective stuff. Don't waste your time on the stuff that's not as effective, right? So like I was saying, like all these weighted crunches and things, and these like even planks, I would say. Like planks are good. Planks are good because like that's the way that like your abdominals and like your core muscles are supposed to work through like stability, right? Or stabilizing. And you're just kind of stabilizing isometrically doing planks and side planks and things, but it's just not nearly as intense as doing hanging leg raises. So I would say that's just the one exercise. Throw it in there, get really good at them, and do a lot of them, and you're gonna have jacked, super strong abdominals. Of course, you have your ab wheel, right? Your like rollouts, your ab wheel rollouts, and those are good. But I'm telling you, they're not as hard as hanging leg raises. They're not as hard. So like at the end of the day, what's the point of doing it if it's not as hard? Plus, a hanging leg raise, again, like at practices, like athletic practices, they only have so much time. My skin is just frying in the sun. They only have so much time to get you as trained as possible. And like at this circumstances, gymnastics is pretty cool to see, like because my daughter's, she's pretty young, but they're already going to be working them like very intensely because it's a sport where like you thrive when you're young, right? So like, there's like 10-year-olds and maybe 12-year-olds and stuff, but like they're already like getting hammered coaching wise because like it's their time. Like if they really want to like go to the Olympics and stuff, like they have to really give it their all at this time. Whereas other sports like baseball and stuff, they're just like in Little League and no one cares, right? You're doing like the pitching machine and stuff. Like it's like, oh, you got plenty of time, so just kind of learn the basics, and it's not very competitive at that point yet. But like for gymnastics, like when you're not even a teenager yet, it's like where your training's got to be like in full effect. So my whole point is like the ab wheel is a super good exercise, but at the end of the day, like hanging is engaging your forearms, right? It's working your lats to an extent. It's working like your entire core. The leg raise is working your lower abdominals. It's working your hip flexors. And I know it's working your quads too. Obviously not a ton, but I know it is because ever since I've had knee surgery, anything that gets my quads firing just kills like my patellar tendon, which is just a real pain in my ass. But it is what it is, and maybe one day it won't bother me. But it's been 3 years since surgery, and it still is a pain in my ass. But yeah, I mean, if my patellar tendon's feeling it when I do them, I mean, clearly my quads are firing too. Anyways, that was a good question. I think I answered that well, though. Hanging leg raises, my man. Strict, straight legs, controlled. Like you can, explode up, but try to slow and control, lower them down. And the more strict you make them, obviously the better, right? Because you could do them where you're like kind of pulling and really like rounding your back and kicking back. But eventually, like if you can just kind of stay straight and just like control bringing your leg all the way up. It might be hard. Like for me, I have super tight hamstrings, so I have to like lean back a bit. But I think you get my, you catch my drift. You catch what I'm throwing at you. Then Chris has another question. He says, if I'm following a specializing routine similar to what you do, press 2 days, pull 1 day, frickin' airplanes. Press 2 days, pull 1 day, press 3 days, pull 1, whatever, repeat. So, there's no like ingrained pattern. It's just whatever you can recover, however much you can do and then recover from. Is there any decent bodybuilding routine you could recommend for an additional morning workout? I am wanting to continue the specializing training because it's more fun and the progress is great, but I'd like to start throwing some 2-a-days in maybe like 4 days a week. Yeah, I mean, specializing is fun. It's way more fun because you have a goal and you're driven and like you're seeing marked improvements every single day because like your nervous system is like locked in on this particular movement and you're just getting better and more efficient at it. And as long as you give your body adequate time to recover and you're feeding yourself and you're resting enough, there's like you should be making very little jumps every single day, and that's fun. It sucks losing strength, but it's fun building strength. Any decent bodybuilding. I mean, if you want to do that 4 days a week, I would just, if I were you, I would just do like, it depends really on what you're doing, what you're specializing in. But you could honestly just do like a bro split type thing 4 days a week. You know, you could do like arms and shoulders, chest, back, legs. Because the whole reason that that's a terrible program in the first place, I mean, it still works. Anything's going to work. But it's not ideal is because, like, that's a lot of rest. You don't really necessarily need that much rest. And it's too long of breaks for you to make great, like, neurological strength gains with. And, like, you can recover faster than, you know, hitting a muscle group once a week. But, like, sure, you can do that on top of your specializing thing because, let's say you're specializing it. You said pull, so like deadlift. Let's say you're deadlifting, you know, a couple times in a row, then you're pressing once, then you're deadlifting again a couple times in a row. On those, on the day you deadlift, you specialize on the deadlift. You could very easily in the morning hit like arms and shoulders. Like that should really not affect your deadlift at all. The second day you do your deadlift, you could do, or I'd say the first day then do some chest, right? That's not gonna affect your deadlift. Day 2, do some like arms and shoulder stuff. Then that won't affect your deadlift. Day 3, then you got your bench stuff. You know, do some legs in the morning, then your heavy bench, right? You just gotta play around with it because it depends on how you recover. But I don't see how any of that you're doing, as long as you're not going like crazy hard. Like if you're doing like you're saying you're doing stability stuff in the morning, as long as you're not like your bodybuilding stuff isn't consisting of like heavy bench or like heavy squats and stuff, because you should save the heavy high intensity stuff for what you're specializing in. So when you say morning bodybuilding stuff, I'm saying like normally I wouldn't recommend it, but I'm saying just pump, light, high volume pump, low intensity. So do that. So when I'm saying like chest, I'm saying like, dude, pump it up. I normally wouldn't recommend it, but like just pump it up on the fly machine, right? Nice stretch, flies. You know, like guillotine, light guillotine press, all the pump stuff. For the legs, you know, the joke pump stuff. Maybe some high rep leg press, but that might even really tax your nervous system, so you might not recover well for your. I would honestly keep the leg press as like a warm up before your deadlift. I think you catch my drift. Just pump, because the whole point is with specializing, you don't want to overdo it the day before because you need enough to recover. So it's like 1 or 2 exercises, and that's not much at all, but you're only doing a little bit so that you can recover for the next day to hit that exercise again and, you know, exceed what you hit the previous day. If you're doing a workout and then you're doing this, and that workout that you did this really hard workout, and then at night you did another hard workout, the next day you're probably going to be pretty wiped out, and you're most likely not going to be able to hit more weight. You know what I mean? So I can't harp on that enough. If you're going to do 2 workouts a day, one's the specializing hard, high intensity workout. That other workout better be just like fluff, right? Just fluff. This kind of fluff, right? This fluff, this fluff, this fluff, right? That fluff. All right. Question here from Yair Perez. Something like that. He says, I'm 18-year-old senior, and I've just recently, about 2 weeks ago, swapped the back squat to behind the back deadlifts because it's my preferred variation. So I'll say this though, like behind the back deadlift is a great quad crusher. It's going to be even better if you did it with a smaller range of motion, like if you use 25s or you're on a deficit, that would crush your quads even harder. It's not going to strengthen your like core, like your lower back muscles, even your abs and obliques, because like your back can round on behind the back deadlifts and it can't really on squats because it's going to crush you if your back rounds on squats. Also, it's not going to work your glutes and hamstrings like a squat will. So, you know, don't get it twisted in regards to saying like, oh, behind the back deadlift is just like a squat. It's not. It's more of like a purely like quad crusher. Like you're going to feel a lot in your quads. You'll feel it maybe a little bit in your glutes and hamstrings, but very little bit compared to squats. So I'm just throwing that out there. But anyway, so it's your preferred variation. However, one big problem, I have thrown up mid-session every time I've done them. I do behind the back deadlifts once a week after normal deadlifts. Okay, that's good. That's good. And that's a great way to complement. That's how, when I was taught it, it was because this was 11 years ago, I want to say. But anyways, it was like, you know, you do a conventional deadlift, bars in front of you, and then you do behind the back deadlift, bars behind you, because behind the back deadlift just really works on your leg drive, like your quad strength, whereas in front of you, it's more posterior strength. So like those two complement each other well. I would throw out some caution to people that like, well, I don't like doing conventional deadlifts, so I'm just going to do behind the back deadlifts. Like, and listen, I've tried that before, thinking like, well, if my behind the back deadlifts gets to like 800 pounds, then how wouldn't I be able to conventional deadlift 700? But it doesn't work like that, because you're not strengthening like your lower back and your glutes and your hamstrings. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're gonna have maybe a decent like leg drive off the ground, but it doesn't mean diddly if you can't lock it up, right? You know, you could explode it up and your back's all rounded, but like, you know, it's a good way to not complete a lift. I mean, if you hitch it up, it's fine. I don't know, just something to throw out there. All just, you know, words of wisdom. So anyways, you've thrown up while working out around 3 times, all right after squats, leg press. Also, I tend to feel nauseous, and something I've adapted to. Is there something you'd recommend me doing? Thanks in advance. So there's a couple reasons that you could be throwing up or feeling nauseous, and that's because you're working so hard that you're building up so many metabolites that it's like a lot for your body to handle, like kind of like a toxic environment, and it's making you feel nauseous. Like very acidic environment. So I guess you could always try like eating like fruits or something. Like fruits and vegetables are like alkaline, like they balance each other out, like acid, alkaline. I would say pre-workout, like if you eat a pre-workout meal, like stay away from like acidic foods. Like don't be eating like a big, I don't know, like tons of chicken or something before, like, you know, just have something light. Also because like, so let's say that is the case, and let's say you do eat beforehand, maybe instead just have pre-workout fruit because it's like alkaline and good simple sugars. Or if you're eating beforehand, it also could just be that because when you're lifting heavy, it's like a fight or flight response. So it could be kind of triggering your like esophagus or whatever to like remove the stuff from your body because you're in fight or flight response, and you need to be like at max efficiency to fight or like sprint away. I used to have that really bad before college wrestling matches, because I would be so anxious, and I'd be like, oh, warming up so hard, but like so anxious because it meant so much to me at the time that I would puke beforehand, and it was just it's a fight or flight response, and your body's like, okay, like we got to get into combat, like we shouldn't have anything in our gut basically to make yourself as light as possible. So maybe you're eating beforehand, and the fight or flight response is making you want to remove food. It could be that, or it could be maybe just how you're bracing, I guess. It's really impossible. No, what you're saying, you got it from leg press as well. So that's a really impossible thing to diagnose. If you're fasting, like I haven't puked from like squatting. Only once have I done that, and that's when I had to stay up all night for an exam, or I had to write a paper all night. I got zero sleep, and I just like drank tons of coffee, and then we had to do like as many reps as possible on squat with like a lightweight. So I did like 50 reps or something. It's like super light, but it was like ridiculous. Yeah, and I like puked all that coffee up. But again, it's probably because my body wanted to empty, because all the blood wanted to go to the muscles, and I was in a fight or flight stress response. And I don't really know if there's anything you can do to like not let that happen, other than, you know, just maybe don't eat before you work out, or have like some alkaline, right? Some just banana or something like that before you work out. Maybe get a better warm up in. That could be because maybe you're going from like ice, I'm not going to say ice cold, but you're going from like a steady state. Now you're working squats super hard and your body's in like a shock mode, where it's like that's what's triggering this fight or flight. So instead, maybe start with like, I don't know, like more comprehensive warm up. Like for instance, just some like kettle. I don't know, dude. And I'm just laying this out here. So things to try, like kettlebell swings or like back extensions, just to get your hamstrings and your glutes warmed up. A couple sets of pull-ups and some hanging leg raises to get like your core and your lats warmed up. Just a couple, because you're doing it as a warm-up. Couple leg extensions, get the VMOs firing. Couple leg curls, get the hamstrings warm, like that kind of. And then go into your squats and deadlifts and see if that gradual warm-up actually helps your body, like, you know, be prepared and like not freak the hell out when you're doing those heavy lifts. So, it's the best thing I can say, brother. Let me know. Let everyone know, because I'm sure you're not the only person that has that happen. Thomas Dunn said, I would like to know what you think is an ideal weekly weight loss to aim for when cutting. Is 2 pounds a week too much to lose, as this would also hinder performance in the gym? Would like to know your thoughts on how much to efficiently cut while keeping on as much muscle as possible. God dang it, all these tourists coming to Orlando. These freaking planes every 5 minutes. Not even exaggerating. So listen, the experts say you can cut like 1 to 2 pounds a week. Like, that's healthy. Personally, if it were me, I would shoot for 1. What's the point? There's no point in rushing it, because you're just making it harder to hold on to your muscle, and you're just going to make it easier to basically lose strength. So what I always do when I want to like lean up a bit is I don't even look at the calories, you know what I'm saying? And I don't look at like the scale weight. I just look at my activity level, and I'll eat the same amount that I typically eat. And I think you have probably a good grasp on what you eat. Like, if you normally have whatever, you know, X, Y, and Z for breakfast, a little bit later you work out, you have your little post-workout meal, you'll have your dinner, your snack before bed, or whatever. Don't change any of that. Just start incorporating like a little bit more activity, like a morning bike ride or a morning walk, or after you lift, hit like 1 or 2 sprints, right? And then after that week, like, see if anything changed. You can look at this as a long-term thing, because you want to be jacked, stacked on the attack of strength and shreds. And like, if you're looking at it as like, oh, I want to cut, that's the biggest, because then people get weak and soft like a kitten, right? Like, you lose all this weight, maybe you got your abs showing now, but like, at what cost, right? You probably lost a little bit of muscle too. You're probably not even as fit because you feel worse, because you're not supplying as many nutrients to your body. So I really like just looking at activity. Like, okay, like, I want to lose a little bit more weight. Let me do a couple more sprints. Maybe I'll do a sprint just before I get to my lifting, right? Just 1 sprint after the workout. You know, I've been doing a couple sprints. Let's do 3 sprints now. Or at night, just go for a walk or something like that. And then just I like tracking that instead, because then you're still giving the same nutrients and the amount that like you've been able to get strong and muscular with. And now I think your body's gonna be better like utilizing nutrients too, as opposed to when you're like cutting out macros and stuff, and like you get in like, obviously you're not starving by any means, but you know, it's just like the food and the stimulus are the keys for what your body wants. Like, you need that signal, that stimulus to your body, like, to have muscle, right? So if you're putting food in, like, you need that signal. Like, if you stop putting food in, your body's gonna start shedding muscle. Like, when I cut weight for wrestling, I used to feel really good at the beginning of the season, but because I was like cutting weight and I was, you know, really limiting my food, over time I started getting really weak. My like endurance would get worse. And how is that even possible? You're later on in the season. It's like you've done way more cardio, way more conditioning, but you're getting weaker. Your VO2 max is getting worse, and it's just like, because obviously you're lacking, right? You're lacking fuel, of course, but because of that, you're starting to, you know, your body's starting to give up the good stuff, give up the fibers, the muscular fibers, right? So if I could do it all over again, I would have just looked at it that way. Like, it's just lazy to be like, oh, I'm just not going to eat as much. Like, and honestly, I think it is lazy, because let's be honest, it's easy not to eat, right? I have to force myself to eat at times. It's easy because especially if you're like drinking pre-workout or coffee, like that right there is going to kill your hunger. You're not going to have an appetite for hours, right? So I think it would have been better like back when I had to cut weight to be like, okay, I'm still going to eat a good meal before practice or after practice. I'm just going to do an extra sprint here or there, right? I'm just going to wake up and just do a little more activity to get the day started, like really kick start the metabolism. Because I mean, really the food is really keeping your metabolism fast, right? And as the longer you diet, the slower your metabolism gets, and then eventually you're just like a lot of people just kind of, I don't know. It's just it almost seems like stupidity to me in that regard. Like just do a little more activity. Like that's gonna over time help with leanness. You're going to be a better conditioned beast, right? You should hopefully have just as much muscle. Like you're not going to be eating up muscle by doing sprints. You're going to build muscle and you're going to burn fat, you know? And I'm talking about bike sprints too, any type of sprint. Rowing sprint, bike sprint, right? Swimming sprint, anything like that. What are we doing here? Okay. Disgusting. What a name, dude. Says, you answered a question about preventing knee injuries. I dislocated my right knee twice in 2019. Ouch. And as you mentioned, it was VMO related. It stabilizes the knee, right? But the VMO was so weak due to overly tight hamstrings. So strengthening and stretching hammies helped immensely. No surgery needed. Wow, there you go. My question is, however, about the mental component to rehabbing. Like the guy who wrote the question, I've seen so many videos of people snapping themselves up, but I think about it at night while trying to sleep, and I'm so afraid of getting kicked in the knee or injuring it that I can't even run or go for a brisk jog. Well, I'll tell you, the best thing to do is biking, right? Like, because coming from someone with knee surgery and how terrifying everything is, and even like for years, and even now, like running still doesn't feel good. Running hurts my knee. It feels fine, but honestly, like after 100 yards, like my knee starts clicking with every step, and it's really annoying and does not feel good. So like, as much as I would like to even be able to sprint or maybe go for just a light jog here and there for the heart, it just kills my knee. So like I have to bike, right? And that's good because biking will like strengthen your VMO muscles. It'll strengthen your entire lower body. Look at the legs on some cyclists. Obviously, if you're going for an easy casual bike ride, maybe not so much, but bike sprints, like today I said I did only 2 bike sprints today, and my freaking quads were pumped. You best believe that's going to strengthen your knees, help stabilize your knees. So what's the question again? What is the question? How do you get the mindset back? Well, yeah, so it's hard. It's very hard, my man, but it's just easing into it, and it's doing little things like biking, leg extensions, leg curls. Leg extensions to strengthen the VMO, leg curls to strengthen the hamstrings, stretch your hamstrings, obviously, so they're not so freaking tight. RDLs, like light RDLs with a big stretch, like it'd be a weighted stretch basically, like that would be money for you. Bulgarian split squats are going to strengthen out or stretch out your quads while stretch out one side while strengthening the other side. Plus it's a single leg movement, so it's going to help like your stability, and that's key as well for injury prevention. And then the more you do that kind of stuff, like you can just start incorporating like Bulgarian split squats, like a Bulgarian split squat jump, like even just with body weight, like a little more explosive stuff here and there. Just doing some really light jump squats with body weight even. And over time, like you're gonna get stronger. Like box squats are money because they don't really put much stress on the knees at all. Use a mini band, get your glutes fired up and activated before you do your squats and deadlift stuff. And it's just really easing into it because like after you have terrible injury or anything, like you should rightfully so be freaked out because once you're injured, it's just that much easier to get injured again. Like it's inevitable. It's going to happen again unless you change something. So I would just kind of change your approach. Like for a while there, I definitely changed the way that I was lifting. Like I went from doing all the weird odd lifts that were like super knee dominant to kind of getting rid of that stuff for a while and just doing like biking, like bike sprints, doing leg press, leg curls, like, you know, that easy stuff. But you have to, of course, I mean, it's easy. That's why everyone does it. But you have to ease back into it. You can't just go back to extreme things. And by the way, like sprinting and jumping and all that, that's extreme stuff. Like that requires like strong joints. So I wouldn't be doing that stuff until like you're really, really confident and feel really good. But like biking was like number one on my rehab protocol. Like every day I was biking. But you're saying, how do you think you can choose an exercise to special in? Or is it just down to proportions and how you're built? My press is my best lift by far, but I'd love to be a squat specialist. Okay, well, maybe that's what you're referring to. I don't really know what the question was there, how to get the mindset back. So I would say you just obviously have to ease into it and take your time with it. Don't rush it, because if you get hurt again, your mindset's going to be pretty piss poor, that's for sure. But if you want to be good at squats, like, dude, you know it. You know the answer. Like, yeah, of course you're going to have leverages better for certain exercises, but that's not to say you can't get really good at whatever you want to get at, because it's just like, again, it's like a sport. Like, you want to be good at baseball, you better go to the batting cages every single day and work on it. Like, I remember, like, naturally as a kid, I was okay at baseball. Like, I was a better baseball naturally without practicing. But like my friend was practicing every single day, and eventually like he just like really surpassed me and got moved on up to like the more advanced team. And I never put extra work in. So I was like, what the hell? And then it was the same thing with wrestling. Like naturally I was a good wrestler, like a decent wrestler. But then I, you know, was pretty much had to go to camps all the time and practice and stuff. And then that's what, you know, made me pretty good, was I had to dedicate so much time to it. And it's the same thing with squatting. Like, we all know you can squat every single day, and it just depends on the variations, right? So you can change it up. Box squats are probably going to be the easiest on the knees. You can do, you know, very deep box squats, and you can transition to like half box squats, which they still have their place. Just messing around with that kind of stuff. And then, like I said, throwing in some Bulgarian split squats from here and there, like that stuff most certainly should help your squatting. But really, if you want to be the best at squats, stick to the things that are closest to the squats. But like, that's the way that I would start it. I would start with just like a normal parallel box squat, right? Sitting your hips far back. Transition then, rotating from a really deep one day to a higher one. But don't go crazy with the high one, because you can move more weight. But if you're freaked out about your knees, do not go crazy. And I would say if you're dislocating your knees and stuff too, like, most likely have a more narrow stance, right? Narrow stance. And narrow stance is going to carry over your squats or your deadlifts better anyways. So if you care at all about that. And then eventually transition into like a trap bar deadlift. And then from there you can do a Zercher squat, and then to like a front squat and a back squat and a low bar back squat. Just kind of like a pyramid of variations. You know what I mean? You're starting with an easy one. Then you kind of get up to your most advanced one. And I would say probably your most advanced squat would be like your high bar back squat, really, because that's the one that requires like the most brute strength. And if your form breaks down, it's the one that's going to, you know, mess you up the most. So then there, and then as you kind of peak with that, then just start working back down that pyramid, right? Of variations, that is. And then he said, also, have you tried dry needling for muscle tightness? I'm doing physio with my physical therapist, needles in the glutes, hams, calves, IT bands, sick. So I haven't done that, but I was actually just thinking today, after my knee was super tight from deadlifting in the sand yesterday, I was like an idiot, that the scraping thing, there's a thing I used to do a lot in rehab for my knee. They scrape, it looks like a knife, but it's obviously not sharp, it's dull, but it's like a dull knife that they scrape to break up scar tissue. And I was like, I should still be getting that done on my knees. And then for everything, I think like everyone could probably benefit from getting that done on all sorts of muscles. Like, imagine like how tight everyone's chest is, and no wonder people are tearing pecs all the time too. So on top of like bad form and heavy weights and flared elbows and whatnot, like there's probably so much tightness built up there from people pressing so much that everyone could benefit from, scraping out trying to break up the fibroblasts or whatever it is. So if anyone knows what it's called, drop the comment. I can't think right now, and I'm sure it's confusing as hell, but it seems like something that's pretty simple. I feel like anyone could do it. You probably just buy the tool and you just use some coconut oil or something. Put some coconut oil on and you just scrape it with the tool, and it's supposed to like break up tight tissue, and I'm sure over time it would probably make you feel a hell of a lot better and more mobile. But then again, like, with that being said, I think we all need to focus more on stretching as well. Like this dude just said, I think it was Disgusting's question, as he just said, like, knee dislocation due to extremely tight hamstrings. And it's like, that's usually what all these injuries are coming from, is just extreme tightness, right? Like, blowing out knees might be from an extremely tight Achilles, or tight hamstrings, tight ankles, like blowing out pecs, extremely tight pecs, blowing out triceps. It's amazing how tight your triceps are. It's amazing how tight your lats are too. So like pulling lats and deadlifts, like just stretching is so very important. And I think that's a good note to drive it home on, that, you know, if I can give you guys one solid golden tidbit, it's don't forget to do your stretches by all means, and start incorporating some straight-legged hanging leg raises, because I really think it's going to help build some nice thick solid abdominals, as well as obviously increasing your, you know, your trunk rigidity, which we all want for better squats and deadlifts. And even with bench too, maintain the solid arch, you got to have a very strong trunk, and you want better pull-ups. Abdominal muscles are extremely important in your pull-ups. But with that being said, guys, this is a pretty good video. It wasn't too long, definitely not too short. I'm cooking in this sunlight right now with no sunscreen on, unfortunately, and a lot of you guys have been saying, like, Sticky Rick, you got to take care of yourself. We don't want to see you get melanoma or whatever it is, and nor do I want to see that either, fellas. So I'm gonna check out from today. Hope you guys have a fantastic rest of the week, and I will see you guys next week. Keep leaving those questions.